6:35 p.m. on October 4th. This is the Select Board meeting. It is being broadcast by Natick Pegasus and recorded for future viewing. It's also being broadcast, actually not yet being broadcast over Zoom. Okay, we are on Zoom?
Online. That's going to be a
okay.
session.
Okay, it is being broadcast over Zoom. If you wish to speak and are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. And there's nobody there, so they won't be raising any hands. So, now that we've cleared all that up, let's do a roll call, or I'm going to do a roll call vote to determine whether we will enter into executive session. So I'm going to read the rationale for entering into exec session and take a vote of the board on whether to enter or not. This portion of the meeting is not open to the public. So item A, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Justin George versus Town of Natick Fire Department, parens, MCAD docket number 21BEM 01327/EEOC, docket number 16C-2021-01261. Item B, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Peroni versus Natick, number 221-CV. 2281, thank you. -CV 02666, Middlesex Superior Court. And I declare both these items.
So moved.
Okay, second. That was moved by Mr. Sidney and seconded by Mr. Joseph. Well, voice vote is Mr. Joseph.
Yes.
Ms. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Sidney?
Yes.
And I am a yes. So we will be going into executive session. We expect to be back around 7:15-ish. And we will reconvene open session at that time. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. We're back in open session. It is now 7:28 p.m. So for those that are in the room, let us all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we got a packed agenda tonight. So, the first thing on the agenda is announcements. And
Different than what we had?
yeah. Okay. So, announcements from the board. Okay. Mr. Sidney.
So I was at the farmer's market on Saturday, and I thought I'd report. It was a good day there. I had several people. I was pretty busy talking to people, actually, the 2 hours I was there, even though it was kind of a cold day. One person wanted to talk about the dam, and I clarified what our positions was, and they actually left smiling, which I thought was pretty good. One person was asking about some correspondence regarding one South Main that they had sent in and not received a response from. I think they've since received a response. There were a couple other conversations, but all in all, it was a busy conversation day, and I just wanted to report that I think this is really successful.
Good.
I'd like to keep it, personally, I'd like to keep it going through the winter market.
Okay.
When they move indoors.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
me.
Okay. Is there anyone else on the board? Mr. Joseph?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been working on a voluntary basis with a couple of the smaller nonprofits in town, one of which a lot of people in the community are familiar with, which is Keep Natick Beautiful. The founder and executive director, Mr. Pat Conaway, is going to be taking a step back from his leadership position. He's going to be still working with it, but really looking for additional support to continue some of the programming. So I just wanted to make an announcement to the community that if you're interested in participating in opportunities to maintain and clean our open spaces, it's really a great opportunity for children, for parents, seniors looking to get out into the community, our veterans. There has been some targeted outreach and cooperation with the Veteran Services Officer, Mr. Carew, with Spark Kindness and Natick 180 to sort of combine some of these groups with the cleanups that the Keep Natick Beautiful team does. And just wanted to kind of announce to the public that if you go to their Facebook page to learn more about them, or you can join the Facebook group for Keep Natick Beautiful, there are places there to volunteer. Specifically, a couple of upcoming events that they are looking for volunteers. One would be Sunday, November 5th, raking at the Cedar Gardens public housing apartments, and then on Saturday, September 18th, excuse me, November 18th, they're going to be doing the annual Coolidge Hill Big Fall Sweep. So that's when they go and clean up what happens to be a lot of broken glass and debris that accumulates from people hanging out over the course of the summer. So those are two dates to keep in mind. And again, just on an ongoing basis, we're always looking for people to support this great work. Many people in the town of Natick are not aware of how much of the open space maintenance that gets done is done through volunteers. So it's a great way to connect. The other comment or announcement I wanted to make, I guess this is more, I guess I'll bring this up during select board concerns. It's not really a concern, but more internal than external. So thank you.
Catherine, do you have any? All right. I've got a couple. One is to announce the closure date for the Community Preservation Committee. We're continuing to take applicants for this committee through October 27th and plan to review them at the November 1st meeting. So please, if you're interested, please apply online. The next item I have is a statement from Chief Hicks regarding panhandling at the Oak Street and Route 9 intersection. The Select Board was contacted by several residents regarding panhandling at Oak Street and Route 9, so I contacted Chief Hicks and he provided this information. The issue of panhandling has become more of a problem, and I'm reading verbatim from his email. The issue of panhandling has become more of a problem in recent months. The Metro West area is seeing an increase in this activity, so much so that there have been recent articles written, and Framingham is trying to develop a local ordinance. However, the actions of these individuals are protected by law. Natick police have been called to the area, and when officers encounter these individuals, they are following the law and guidelines. These guidelines are to not be in the street nor disrupt the flow of traffic. Chief Hicks noted that these guidelines are similar to someone being downtown and holding signs. One of the comments is that and this is me paraphrasing, that the Natick police are not taking action on that. Chief Hicks said to say we refuse to take action or deal with the situation is a comment made out of frustration. The fact is, if we do not witness actions that may rise to the level of criminal action, there is nothing we can do. Officers, when responding, have not witnessed activity that rises to that criminal activity. Many times, all they can do is warn the individuals of those complaints. So that's that. Next, I'm going to, if possible, Jamie, could you talk about the Broadmoor?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Sorry, I'll just pull up the details. So we received correspondence last week, this week, from the Broadmoor Mass Audubon property. And this is more just a public information announcement. They will be doing and conducting during archery season this year from October 3rd to December 31st, day-to-day operations of a controlled hunt to try to control the deer population. They have designated areas that are away from pathways, that are away from where people are going to be hiking, and they have it very well. They have it well regulated. They've been doing this for a number of years, so this isn't the first that they've been doing it, but it's just good information to share more broadly within the community, just so that people know what's happening on the Broadmoor property. There's more information at the Broadmoor website. You can go there. Broadmoor.org, massaudubon.org/Broadmoor, and they'll have more information on there with regards to some of the details of the controlled hunt. You can also, there's also a much longer link, but you can get there just from massaudubon.org. It's part of their conservation efforts for deer management on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. I'd also like to add that Chief Hicks has said this has occurred several times in the past, and they're very cognizant of the public safety and marking off the areas and ensuring that visitors are well aware of when and where these hunting locations are. Are there any other announcements? Moving on to public speak. Any individual may raise an issue that's not included on the agenda, and it will be taken under advisement by the board. There will be no opportunity for debate during this portion of the meeting. This section is limited to 15 minutes, and any individual addressing the board during this section shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to speak? Ms. McKenzie, please take the podium.
Hi, my name is Donna McKenzie, and I'm here in my capacity as an associate member of the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee.
Just push the button.
Hello, can you hear me?
Just push the button that says
The light.
I think I got it.
There you go.
Let me just repeat myself.
Start
My
it
name
over.
is Donna McKenzie, and I'm here in my capacity as an associate member of the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee. Just by way of an announcement, we are having a community forum next Wednesday, October 11th at 7 p.m. in the school committee meeting room upstairs. We expect it will go no later than 9. But we have some significant warrant articles coming up on town meeting, and we want to have the opportunity to explain these warrant articles, give people the opportunity to ask questions, and also share your thoughts. So we hope if you're able, you will come and join us. And there will, of course, be seasonal refreshments because we have to have something to entice you to come and meet with us. But we hope you will. And a couple people have said that the review that we've done has been much more comprehensive than in the past several years. So in order to make town meeting as efficient as possible, we just would like you to encourage you to come and educate yourself as much as you can about the articles that are on the warrant. Again, next Wednesday, 7 o'clock, school committee room. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKenzie. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Okay, moving on to appointments. The first appointment was for Economic Development Committee, but that has been withdrawn. The person withdrew their interest on that, so we'll move on to...
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may, just given that, if specific to the Economic Development Committee and as a liaison to that, I know this individual did withdraw their name. There has been an expressed interest from a local business owner who will be submitting an application, but I do think it's important for the public to be aware, you know, the EDC is looking for ideally property owners, business owners, or people with an interest in sort of the commercial development and planning for the community. So just it's, in addition to many other committees that do have vacancies, you can always look onto the town website for volunteer opportunities. But just wanted to do a specific shout out because we're looking to diversify some of the experience on the EDC.
And are there 2 open positions?
I think that's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Moving on to the South Middlesex Regional Vocational Technical School, affectionately known as Keefe Tech. We have 2 applicants for 2 positions, Mr. Edward Carr and Mr. Henry Hoagland. So if you could, either of you want to go first and give us your bona fides. You know, I think most of us know you, but for the public who don't know you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Well, as most of you know, that doesn't work both ways because with the air handlers in here, it interferes with my hearing aids. But I'm keenly interested in seeing if I can add value to the Keefe Tech superintendent and principal. I have been, 4 terms on the Natick School Committee, and I served 7 years on the executive committee of the Advanced Math and Science Charter School. So I have a considerable amount of school governance experience, and I'm very concerned, and actually more than concerned, I'm passionate about trying to find everything that we can do to help make sure that our kids are well prepared to enter adulthood. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Questions from the board? Okay. Moving right along, Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
That was too easy.
Don't worry, we didn't
We're going
set
to beat
you
you
up
up
for
instead.
So my name is Ed Carr. I retired from the Metro West Regional Transit Authority for a little over a year now. I've been spending most of that time up in New Hampshire working in an equine wellness project for veterans with disabilities, kids with disabilities, and I've really enjoyed the heck out of it. But I figured it was time to come back to the town of Natick and try to put my 2 cents in. The reason I'm here for the Keefe Tech, possibly for the appointment, is that a friend of mine on the committee currently made me aware that there was an opening in Natick, and at his behest that I should apply for it. I am interested in Keefe Tech for several reasons. One, I had a couple of kids graduate from there, and I was very, very happy with their experience in high school. When I did get my undergraduate degree late in life, I got a secondary education certificate to go with it that I never really got to use other than coaching football and doing a few veterans in the classroom programs with some of the teachers that I knew. So, but I'm really interested in secondary education as a bridge to adulthood. And, I know that with the right leadership, kids get a better chance, get a better shot at it. And I know Keefe Tech does great work. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Questions? No.
Any questions? Any motions?
I'd like to actually just move to appoint both Mr. Hoagland and Mr. Carr to serve as the Natick representatives to the Keefe Tech School Board.
Second.
And if I may, in discussion.
Please.
I know both of these gentlemen from past work, and obviously their reputations in Natick precede them both. The fact that one's interested and has a pilot's license, the other's interested and works with horses, maybe can bring some expansion to the curriculum at Keefe Tech, bringing that. But in all seriousness, I think you have 2 very experienced residents in these 2 individuals that can bring a wealth of knowledge from serving in the military as a Marine, as you did, Mr. Carr, the work that you've done in private sector, Mr. Hoagland, both of you in volunteer capacities all over Metro West. I think there's nothing more important than not only making sure the curriculum is sound, but having conduits into the community and with relationships to the employers that sorely need these well-trained employees. So I can't think of 2 more highly qualified people to help with that process, and I'm proud to nominate them both.
Well, thank you, Mr. Joseph. Mrs. Sidney.
Yeah, first of all, ditto. But I want to also acknowledge that Keefe Tech is a gem of our community. Because we have Keefe Tech, because we're a member of Keefe Tech, we can actually focus on college-oriented students in our own school district. It's a big help, and I think given Mr. Hoagland's experience on the school committee and his understanding of the interrelationship between our district and Keefe Tech's district, and Mr. Carr's long experience volunteering in Natick. I remember you from when I was on the finance committee and you were up here. I heartily support both of these appointments.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. Scott?
Ditto remarks that are said, and also my admiration for both of your extensive resumes and involvement in volunteer work. That's highly commendable, and we're very lucky to have you both put yourselves forward.
Thank you, Ms. Coughlin. One of the downsides of batting fourth is everything's been said, more or less, but I don't know Mr. Carr very well yet, but his reputation certainly precedes him, and I do know Mr. Hoagland very well, having worked with him on a number of different committees while on the Finance Committee. These are both quality people who, as my colleague mentioned, have been volunteering in this town for years, decades. And we couldn't be better served as a town to have these two represent us. So I heartily endorse them. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that's a 4-0 vote. We will need to get you sworn in with the town clerk at some point. So please send me an email and I'll make sure that happens. Okay.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Very much.
And thank you very much.
folks.
Okay, moving on to discussion and decision. The first item is tourism discussion with the Economic Development Committee. And Mr. Erickson, do you want to kick that off, and then we'll kick it over to Economic Development folks?
Yes, sure. Well, there's quite a bit of information in the packet regarding this, and this has been an item that I know I've been talking about with Mr. Levinsky for 4 or 5 years, too long, pre-pandemic. And I don't want to sort of butcher the details of it because it's been a while since I've been sort of focused on it, but I know it's been a long time coming with regards to how can we better invest in tourism, especially in the Metro West. And I know the Economic Development Committee has a recommendation for the Select Board for consideration. I don't think there's a need for an action tonight per se. It's more just knowledge and for information sharing, but there might be an action coming on the pipeline. So if I can pass it over to the experts, that would be ideal. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have also Scott Laughlin.
Scott's on, okay. I'm sorry, didn't notice that.
But I think he's got COVID, so he's...
I'm right here.
Okay.
Got COVID now, sorry.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear, but hopefully not too bad, and you're back on your feet soon.
Day 9.
Okay, Mr. Levinsky, or do you want to?
Great. Hi, good evening. First off, Scott, do you want to give any introductory, or do you just want me to hop in?
You're muted, Scott.
I think that...
Thought it was unmuted. You can hop right in, Steve.
Okay. Thank you. Hey,
Thanks.
good evening. Steve Levinsky. I'm chair of the board for the Metro West Visitors Bureau. You're seeing me in a different capacity. Like you, I chair that board as a volunteer, and happily have done that for about the last... long time, anyway. That's why we've been talking about this for a very long time. With me tonight is Jim Giarmart. Jim, I've known you for a long time. I butcher your name every time. Go ahead. Gimarinaro. Jim is the Economic Development Director for the Metro West Visitors Bureau. I'd like to really do 3 things tonight. Talk real briefly about the Visitors Bureau,
review the legislation and the program that hopefully will come before you soon, answer any questions, and as Mr. Erickson said, looking for no decision, but what I'm looking for tonight is to gauge your receptivity that if hotels would petition you to participate in a TDMD, which I'll explain, that there's a receptivity here. Part of that is where do we spend our energy, and if we think there's a receptivity to hearing more about it from the hotels, we'd like to include Natick. If not, we have 19 other communities to work with. We want Natick, though, as our number one. The Visitors Bureau was established in 2010 by the legislature. They designated us as a regional tourism council and have 19 communities within our service area. On the north is Sudbury, south is Bellingham. We have Northborough on the west and Natick on the east. The reason for our being is simply stimulate the economy in Metro West, and doing that by promoting tourism and travel from people beyond 50 miles outside of Metro West, internationally as well as nationally, and encourage residents to take advantage of all that Metro West has to offer. So diving into the TDMD, which again is the Tourism Destination Marketing District, pre-COVID, the state legislature passed some enabling legislation, which really allows a 2% assessment to be put, or we're asking for a 2%, an assessment to be put on hotel folios. So when I talk about that, if you've gone to New York, Philadelphia, Sacramento, San Diego, San Francisco, Los Angeles, who all have TDMDs, as you look down your bill at the bottom, you're going to see a charge. That's exactly what we're talking about here. The legislation is designed to put what we're calling heads in beds, particularly encouraging people to come and stay in Metro West. The funds that are raised will support marketing campaigns as well as targeted improvements to facilities and activities within the region. Ideally, we'd like to start with Natick and Ashland as our first two communities. The Warren Center Hotel has petitioned the Ashland Select Board. Ashland Select Board has accepted their petition and is willing to participate in this. We're also talking actively to Franklin and Westboro. The Metro West Visitors Bureau would be the fiscal agent. A district committee would need to be formed, which would have the majority of the people on that committee would be hoteliers. So money is raised from hotel assessments. The hotels have the majority vote on how that money is used. The design is to use that money, 60% of it to promote the region, and particularly promote the communities that are part of the TDMD. 40% of that can be granted to local communities to help encourage tourism and activities, as well as capital within those communities. Magnitude-wise, if Natick and Ashland would form the TDMD, given 814 hotel rooms, would be about a $600,000 inflow of funds to be used for these purposes. If we would get all 19 communities in the region, or all the communities that have hotels, that would generate about $4.1 million. So this is a game changer. There's no doubt about it. Let me talk quickly about what the process would be. The idea is, and the way the legislation is written, is that if 62% of the hotels within the designated area agree to participate, then 100% of the hotels have to. The idea behind that is that no one is disadvantaged because somebody is charging a 2% higher room rate than somebody else. By legislation, then, the lead community, and again, we would hope Natick would entertain that. There is a whole public hearing process outlined in the legislation. With that public hearing, that district committee I talked about, which have the hoteliers as well as members of the Visitors Bureau, we would submit a plan on how we would use the funds. If approved, the approval would be for a 5-year period, and then options for renewal after that. Each year, the lead community could dissolve the TDMD if there's bad things happening or it's not working. We are engaging actually tomorrow in discussions with a group called Civitas. And what Civitas does is, of the 215 TDMDs around the country, they have worked on 150 of those. Having started 150. So they're kind of a machine. So we're hoping to be able to bring them in and help us with that. And I can talk a lot more about it, but ostensibly Boston has done this. They've raised $21 million in their first year. Springfield's working on developing one. Foxborough is, the Cape is. Basically, we don't want Metro West to get out-marketed and out-promoted. These funds would enable us to go to trade shows, to go to tour operator showcases, to woo athletic events, youth athletic events to the region, advertise more. One of the very practical things that we're getting outgunned on is, with that $21 million, Boston is offering a 10% room discount to meeting planners. We don't have the funds to be able to do that. So the idea is, let's get in the game and let's have our fair share come into Metro West. Now, with that, I'll stop and look for questions, comments. And I'm watching your eyes again for receptivity. So.
It's being received. Ms. Coughlin.
Just a few questions. So the TDMD by community PDF that was provided to us shows that figure of 4.1 and change $million, and it lists 10 communities, but you mentioned 19 for the region.
Yeah, 19 communities in the service area, only 10 have hotels that would participate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would,
Use the mic, please.
Yeah, come on up.
If you're going to speak, you have to go to the mic.
One of the communities who has interest is Sudbury. They have 48 rooms at their hotel. We set a cutoff of 50, so there may be one other community that would participate or could participate. Right.
and so the 19 communities in the service area, they would benefit from the marketing and other funds that are raised by the 10 communities that have hotels.
Exactly. And again, we would want to, as fairly as we could, return as many services back proportionately to the people contributing, basically, if that's said in a way that we understand what I'm saying.
Can you tell me more what role the lead community, you mentioned that a couple of times, it sounds like a specific role. What does the legislation provide in terms of rights and responsibilities?
Basically, it's the community that would receive the petitions from the other communities. So hotels would petition their local communities, their select boards would approve. Those select boards would then come to Natick, hopefully, which would be the lead community. At that point, Natick would be required to hold several public hearings, publicize those, as well as be the lead reviewer of the plan for how the money would be spent. And that's the main responsibility.
And does the statute provide for any specific demographic to be represented on the district committee? I understand to be mostly hoteliers, but hoteliers.
The only thing it requires is that the majority be the hoteliers. So it doesn't say how large the committee would be. Ideally, right now, what we're assuming is we would add, as a community would come on, we would add a representative from a hotel in that community to that district committee. But there's nothing beyond that.
And then just one last question for now. Have you spoken with the owner of the 2 hotels in Natick?
Oh, spoken is, we've begged, we've cajoled, we've visited, we've
And he's
approached.
I see.
Of the 4 hotels in Natick that would qualify, 2 have agreed. 2 have not yet. And to hit that 62% mark, we would need one of the other hotels to come and join us.
I'm drawing a blank. Can you remind me of we've got the Verve, the Hampton
Sure.
Inn?
We've got the
Oh,
Verve,
Courtyard, yes.
Hampton Inn, Courtyard, and Residence Inn.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all for me for now.
The two that have not yet agreed have out-of-state ownership, and one is a very, very out-of-state ownership. So it's been a little more difficult to get them invested like the other 2 hotels are in Metro West.
Thank you so much. Sure.
Mr. Sidney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These are kind of curiosity, logistical questions. So you said that there'd be public hearings held. Who drives those? And I'm really looking to see, is the select board involved in that, or, so we would be holding public hearings on those things? Okay.
Yeah, the clerk has provided that the town clerk would publicize. The select board would then hold that hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So could I just pause 1 second? So it would have to be a public notice, right? It would
Be a public
So that's
notice, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Big process.
right, no, it's a public hearing, I got that.
Just making sure.
Just out of curiosity, about how many of them would you expect to have in, say, a given year?
Public hearings, 1 every 5 years, with the option, if it's not working, you could call a public hearing once a year to dissolve it.
Well, I thought you said that some of the funding stuff has to go through public hearings, too.
Just the district plan, so.
Oh, just the
so
district
we'd
plan, okay.
Present the district plan for a 5-year period. If there's changes to that district plan in that period, there's an obligation to come back and inform you.
Okay. So, as a lead community, do the funds flow through Natick? Are we going to have, no? They go straight to the TDMC?
Well, they go, as a hotel already does, or a restaurant does, those funds go to DOR on normal monthly forms that they fill out. DOR then brings that money directly back to the Metro West Visitors Bureau to be dispersed under the direction of the district committee. That's a lot of words.
Yeah, so it's the district committee that actually allocates the funds.
Right.
Okay, so there's no town meeting involvement unless we get a capital project that they approve for us to do?
Right.
Okay, I was trying to get the logistics
Oh, no,
of that
it's
down.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and just as a comment, I'm favorably disposed. Thank you.
Do you have something?
Yeah, well, I think you answered my question just for clarification in terms of how the money is spent. Yeah, are you still at questions or comments?
Questions or comments?
I only have comments. I'm familiar with it.
Let me just ask a quick question then. My question was just how you mentioned earlier, sorry, my voice is a little funky tonight. What is the receptivity of businesses to this? Not the hotels, but the businesses, the MathWorks, et cetera, and you also mentioned that you would encourage events to be held as part of this arrangement. So can you elaborate on
Sure.
sort of what the reception is?
Because it's the 62% requires the 100%, it kind of levels the playing field again for the hotels. In talking with representatives, I'm not going to speak for MathWorks, but a couple major employers, they're facing this all over the country with their business travel. So again, there's 215 of them out there. There already is one in Boston. It's coming up in Foxborough. So it's not much of a difference to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're already encountering this, and if anything, Natick entering into this could be a plus to attract more
Oh,
for
absolutely.
that business. So
Yep.
that's where I was headed
Yep.
with that. Okay, thank you. Mr. Joseph, you had a comment?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, with the amount of time that's been put into this. I think, from different perspectives, I've seen it. I saw it when I was at the Chamber of Commerce and working with Steve and Jim and Scott and the EDC. Did hear this, I think it was 4 months ago, there was a convening. I see Mr. Laughlin has his hand up, but I guess I was just going to make the statement that I think what's important when you look about parity across the region, the concerns to your answer, there might be some disparity if, say, Natick adopts it, Framingham does not. Some of the large employers do have contracts with the hotels. The benefit of being a sponsoring community for this is that because of that targeted money that can be spent, and because the vast majority of heads and beds in the Metro West right now are business driven, if we can focus on capital projects that support those businesses, that's one of the carrots that I think make the most sense to make this work. And I think long term it's in their best interest. So I think we have competitive advantage by adopting it, even though it sounds counterintuitive. The other thing, Mr. Levinsky mentioned about activities. We see the Natick Mall, for example, with the vacancies that it's got and the sort of slowdown in life sciences development right now. So activities-based retail, destination retail has become one of the outlets for that type of business. So the importance of being able to market a Natick, for example, for a competitive sports league. We can look at Marlboro and the New England Sports Center, the ice rinks that they have out there. They draw international ice tournaments, hockey tournaments there. I could see the day where, say, there's a conversion of the Natick Mall for some competitive sport or league where something like this could be promoted, and I think that's one of the intentions of the TDMD marketing with the Visitors Bureau, is really to promote those types of activities, because in suburban Boston, that's one of our competitive advantages, I think, and better engagement with families. So, I'm supportive.
Thank you for those comments. It underscores where my head was at in terms of business development and how, excuse me, Natick could differentiate itself. So, good.
Mr. Laughlin. Mr. Laughlin has his hand up.
Yep, Mr. Laughlin, please.
Yes, hi. So the TDMD was originally presented back at our April meeting, and then we tendered our memorandum to the select board back in September. I wanted to point out the fact that this is revenue that is not a burden to the residents, but a benefit to the residents. And we have the opportunity to be a leader as opposed to being a follower. With the Golden Triangle and the conversion of retail space and being repurposed to many different uses, we need to stay on top of things. We need to market this region. We need to continue to nurture the biotech stuff that's happening and all the different businesses that we can bring into town. We did have extensive discussion about this at our committee, and we voted unanimously to support it. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Laughlin. Anything further?
No, thank you, and I hope I see you very, very soon, is the intent here.
Okay.
Thanks for the time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Levinsky. Thank you, Jim. Oops, wrong document. Okay, next we'll go to item B, which is accept resignations from the Sustainability Committee. And we'll explain more about why we have 4 people resigning from the Sustainability Committee in a few minutes. They are Roger Luckman, Alfredo Vargas, David Magalov, Nick Adams Pandolfo. So let us, thank all of them for the great work that they've done on the sustainability, and the board looks forward to you applying to the Net Zero Committee to continue working towards a sustainable community.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept all 4 resignations from the Sustainability Committee.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 And I just want to say, the Sustainability Committee has done a tremendous job in town and has moved us forward and helped us move forward in really positive ways to reduce our greenhouse gases. And I want to really just shout out to them for doing the job they've been doing and also giving us a path forward to the next stage.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Sidney. That was well said. And I do the ditto rule with that. They've from day one, this committee has really pushed the envelope from where we were at a number of years ago in terms of sustainability. Natick has always been a leader in this effort and was doing things years ago, even before it became cool. So we moved ahead very well, and item C is a proposed change to that committee, and we as a board have to decide whether we dissolve the Sustainability Committee and create a net zero committee, or we just morph it into a net zero committee. So I'd welcome Mr. Ryan to the podium to walk us through what their intention is with the net zero committee. Mr. Ryan, please introduce yourself.
Leo Ryan, resident of Natick. Thanks very much for your the time on the agenda and the wonderful comments about the Sustainability Committee and the work that's been done. So I'm standing here in my role as a former chair of that committee. Jillian tapped me about 6 years ago, inviting me to take on that role, and I've had the really great fortune of working with some tremendous community members with that committee. So it's great to recognize the 4 folks who recently come off the committee, but going back 6 years, there's about 12 folks who've been part of that committee and have done some of that work that you commented on. So my purpose in being here tonight is to talk about this proposed transition of taking us from a sustainability-focused committee to one that's very, very targeted on the net zero plan. And there was a memo provided earlier that outlined the rationale for that. I'm happy to walk through that memo, but also just open to you if there's a more efficient way to go through this. I invite you to either ask questions, or let me ask a question. Would you like me to go through that memo and the justification?
If you could, Mr. Ryan, just briefly go through the ideas that you have, because I think they're quite sound and people would like to hear them.
Okay. So when the committee was formed 6 years ago, there are 3 primary objectives for the committee. The first was to provide education within the community around sustainability-related matters. The second was to serve as a support for town department heads, particularly the sustainability director. And the third was to target campaigns that might be directed towards sustainability. And one of those campaigns had focused on adopting a net zero plan for the community, understanding our carbon footprint and finding ways to reduce that in the 3 key communities, that being the residences, the commercial entities, and the municipality itself. And so that project, that net zero plan, represented an awful lot of work on behalf of a whole bunch of folks. It's a very well done document that does provide a nice pathway forward. And one of our concerns recently is that the plan is not getting the full attention that we think it deserves. And part of the motivation for moving us from a broadly focused sustainability committee to one that's targeted very much on the net zero plan is that we don't lose all that work and momentum that was done around a goal that's primary to the committee. So and this was not done in a vacuum. We had conversations with folks around town, the director, Jillian Wilson-Martin, as well as community groups like Eco Natick and various members of the present committee, so making sure that they were on board with that. So this focus is one that very much aligns with what we're seeing in other towns. So Wayland with their Clean Energy Future Committee, Arlington, Wellesley, all examples have recently moved their charter from broadly focused sustainability into the net zero focus. So we think that makes a lot of sense. And then quite clearly, where in the past the Net Zero Committee had those 3 objectives that I spoke about, this committee would be targeted on the plan that's already been put forward. There's about 26 focused activities that the committee could then seek to support or drive. And some of these things are, beyond the scope of a town government, but they're really focused on education. For instance, there'll be opportunities for residents to learn more about how to reduce their carbon footprint on their home. The municipality has very little control over that. There's other opportunities where we believe that other towns have led by modifying building codes and inviting more strict codes to drive us quicker toward net zero. And that process, that we want to make sure that we do that in a very logical way, understanding the implications of adoption of that code so that people can be heard. So if it affects the building community, we want to understand where the objection might be and modify the approach as necessary. And by being focused on net zero, we can do those things. Another key element to the reconstituted committee, if adopted, would be that we'd have 5 principal focus areas. And those would be renewable energy deployment, energy efficiency for commercial buildings, energy efficiency of residential homes, transportation decarbonization, and waste reduction. So 5 key areas. And one of our objectives in filling the 5 spots of the committee is that the folks coming on board would have some familiarity or technical capacity in those 5 areas. It's wonderful. We need communicators, obviously, but we also need folks who have a deeper technical understanding so that it's not a burden on other departments to do that. And we believe within town we have those capabilities. In fact, we've identified some of those folks. So in terms of the structure, in terms of the composition, the chair and the terms, what was established 5 years ago, 6 years ago, would still work. No great recommendation in terms of the way the process moves. And I want to thank Mr. Evans for helping me walk through the process of dissolving the old committee and then sponsoring the new one. And then, as always, the positions will be posted. We'll accept applications. There's a process underway right now. We're inviting folks to apply so that you'll have resumes and backgrounds of these folks, and then collectively we can come up with the best group of 5 to support that. We're also recommending that we have a 6th non-voting member that's from the kind of a youth corps, so we have a connection with the high school. That's what we anticipate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ryan. Questions from the board?
Well, just a couple of comments. I just double-checked, and we can create a new committee on our own, but we can't completely dissolve the sustainability. We cannot appoint to it. We can't dissolve the sustainability committee without an action at town meeting because it's in our bylaws.
Okay.
It just has to be. Now, we can create committees that we want to. We should probably add it to the bylaw. It's just something we need to add a tickler for Springtown meeting warrant to.
Okay.
The other option is to not rename the committee and just change the charge. And that would work also. So that's up to us, I think, if we want to change the charge rather than try to rename the committee.
I would rather rename the committee. I think
And-
it speaks to the mission. It's much more narrowly focused. And so,
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring up the logistics of it.
and I would suggest that we not necessarily put it in our bylaw or charter so that we have more freedom and don't have to wait 6 months to make changes. So in the spring, we can ask town meeting to dissolve the sustainability committee.
We'll
but-
just remove it from the bylaw.
Or just remove it from the bylaw. And we could create it here. Since we have that power, we can go ahead and create it and get on with the business of appointing people.
Okay. Just trying to understand what you're asking, which is we're going to morph the existing sustainability committee to be the net zero committee?
Nope, we've accepted, we're going to ignore the sustainability committee. It'll be defunct for all purposes till the spring.
Okay. All right. That's. Well, I hadn't gotten to my alternative yet.
Oh, okay.
That was the second piece, which is, I think, the cleaner way to do it. So.
Well,
It also thinks, we also can accept, we can open up the applications to apply to that. And, what I was thinking was we can put that on the website maybe in the next week, use a lot of the information that's in the new plan that Mr. Ryan has provided, and encourage interested residents with requisite knowledge and experience to apply, and we'll take applications again through October 27th and review applicants at our November 1st meeting, if that's amenable to everyone. That, to me, gives people enough time to respond to that. It gives us enough time to put it on the website and move forward. I agree. I think creating a new committee and then doing cleanup of the sustainability committee at Springtown meeting makes sense.
So I move we create a net zero committee with the charges described in Mr. Ryan's memo.
Okay.
And structured as he suggests in his memo.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 So I will work with Mr. Erickson and whoever your designated person is to get that website created, get the committee created, and I'm not sure what we can do with the sustainability committee as far as saying, we could probably just let it go idle.
Yeah, we can just make that page no longer visible.
Yeah.
Jay has, per Paddock, has been working on our committee page anyway, so this will be a good opportunity for us to update the page.
Okay.
Sorry, we jumped to a vote without discussion, but I just want to thank Mr. Ryan, thank the committee, thank the chair for working with them. I loved everything about this proposal because I also think you're giving a blueprint for how we might move forward with some other advisory committees. Having specific action focus of our committees, looking for specific expertise, and having a specific charge that we can check in with, I think is the way to go.
Yeah.
I have heard from, and I remember serving as the chair of a committee, that the charge was a little vague from the select board. I think part of this helps that we're sort of leveraging expertise from the community, certainly working with our staff experts to really help the town administration execute on the things they need to do by taking advantage of this talent. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I did cut to the chase.
And
Sorry.
one thing I'd add that I was really impressed with in the charge is that the committee must meet at least 10 times a year. I'm very thankful for that because we do have committees that don't have a specific requirement or an expectation from the board that they meet so often or present reports back to the board. So yeah, kudos on a really great proposal.
Great.
Ditto, ditto.
I'll pile on a little bit, which is what was encouraging to me is much of what Mr. Joseph said. These are the concrete steps that get it from being more of a, it's not really a wish list, but it's an aspiration, and these are the concrete steps that actually are the building blocks to get us from point A to point B. So I'm very grateful for you putting this together. I'm also grateful for you reaching out to other communities because I've maintained all along, Natick can't do it alone. Natick needs partners. It needs federal partners, state partners, and regional partners. So I encourage you to leverage as much as you can, and I know you will. So thank you very much, Mr. Ryan.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, next up is an updated public shade tree policy.
We did.
Yeah, we voted, right?
Yeah.
We voted cart before the horse there. Mr. Goodhind, welcome.
Thank you. All people here.
If I may just briefly, following some recent discussion at select board meetings that were occurring during some of the pavement management program projects, I wanted to take that as an opportunity to review the shade tree policy with staff, with Mr. Goodhind, as well as Mr. Westling and folks at Public Works. And so that led to why we're here tonight with this trade updated, I'm going to get it butchered, updated policy. I won't even try to say it. And I just want to give credit to Art and John for just responding so quickly and understanding the importance of just reviewing the policy, because I think it's important. It seemed like there was a lot of confusion during that public discussion, and I felt it was a good opportunity just to take a chance to take a look at that policy and just try to make it more clear. So with that, if it's okay with me, Mr. Chair, I'll
absolutely. Thank you,
Mr. Goodhind to take it from here.
All right, thank you. Arthur Goodhind, I am Supervisor of Land Facilities, Natural Resources, excuse me, and Tree Warden for the town of Natick. Here before you to present and answer any questions, edits, whatnot, for the revised tree policy. Essentially, the new revised tree policy outlines some of the state laws that we must adhere to, some of our own internal policies, procedures, and bylaws. Also outlines some of the most recent national standards for safety and for properly caring for trees. And at the end, it also helps clarify the difference between what essentially is a public shade tree defined by Mass General Law, Chapter 87, and what are trees on public land, specifically trees that are on public land under the purview of your group here for a select board, which would be trees on land under the jurisdiction of the park commissioners and trees on land under the jurisdiction of a select board. So maybe like a miscellaneous tax parcel or something that's not truly defined as parkland. So happy to answer any questions, comments.
Mr. Evans, if I may. So just to clarify, it's trees on the land and/or the part of the tree that is in that space as well, right? So the trunk could theoretically be on private property, but the growth could come into public property. So does the town have purview into that?
So if that tree, so you have to separate between a public shade tree as defined by Mass General Law, which would be a tree within or along the boundary of a public way, versus trees on public land.
Thank you, yes.
If it's tree on public land, and same thing for a tree within the right-of-way of a public street, trees are measured, their location is measured, what's called the base of the trunk rule. So wherever that base of the trunk is located would determine the ownership of that tree. So you can have a shared boundary tree. If that tree is on land of parkland or select board land, that abutting owner has equal rights to that tree or tree parts or whatnot, if it straddles that boundary. If it straddles or what's known as along the boundary of a public way, that tree is fully the responsibility of the municipality.
Okay. Thank you.
Sidney.
Yeah, so a couple of clarifying questions, I think. Trees on the common are not trees on public land, right? Those are public shade trees, yes? No?
The opposite. So those are not public shade trees as defined by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 87, but within that law, there is a clause, or what you'd like to call it, where the select board or the park commissioners, which are select board members, can appoint the tree warden care of those trees. So those I would call trees on public land.
Okay, so what's the difference between, say, a tree on the common and a tree that's on a lot that we acquired, say, through tax title?
Essentially no difference other than some of the land, like the town common or perhaps the corner with Cottage Street and South Main Street, would be specific park land, which has the whole legislative piece, if you're going to make significant changes to, but not necessarily just trees.
Okay, so
That's Article 97, you mean?
Yes, thank you.
yeah, I just wanted to understand if there was an actual difference. Second clarifying question. Tree on private property. Most of the branches overhang a street. Does the town have any rights to, like, prune that tree for safety?
Yes and no. So, so your situation is, along a public way. So the owner of the tree, based on the rule of the base of the trunk rule, where that tree is located, if that tree is fully within that private property, that owner has a duty to inspect and a duty to remove a risk condition. We cannot prune that tree with trespass.
With what?
Trespass.
With trespass. So we, it would kind of default to the Massachusetts rule, the rule of self-help. If that tree branch is a public nuisance or threatens public safety in some way, we can prune that tree, but only up to the boundary and the right-of-way of the street. How we're, as a municipality, and myself as a certified arborist, are separated from a regular homeowner is we're held to a higher standard for that tree care. So it falls back to the reasonable person principle. What would a reasonable person do? If I go to that private tree and I just cut it back to the right-of-way, knowing that that's a cut not aligned with standards and best practices, and we cause harm to that tree, the municipality and myself are more liable for that. So if I, as a reasonable person, as a reasonable tree warden, don't ask for prior permission to trespass and make that cut, that's an issue. But with that said, we have a hard time just keeping up with our own trees, never mind the trees as a responsibility.
Well, I was thinking in particular about the problem that was over at CVS that you guys dealt with over the weekend.
Okay. So
which is, one of those was a private tree.
Yes. So a little bit more clarification for that. So unfortunately, my tree company was a no-show, but I'm working on that. So those trees are still there. Those trees border a public right-of-way. So one of my obligations as tree warden is to determine the tree's position and ownership within the right-of-way by record or monument. And a record would be something on a map. Monument is like a specific bound or a fire hydrant or something I could say, all right, that designates within a few inches the right-of-way. If I'm not able to do that, the benefit of the Public Shade Tree Act is I can assume that it's within the public way. So a few of those trees lower on that hillside, I have assumed are within the public way. The one furthest up, I'm certain is not within the public way. One of the challenges to identify that site is it's an older state layout, which I don't have access to. I can't find a boundary there, so.
So last question, if I may.
Sure.
So I think this is much more rare, but there are corners in town where there are small trees, not like shade trees, but, you know, like firs that, you know, approach a corner and are taller than the 3 feet that our bylaws specify for visibility on corners. Do we have any rights relative to those kinds of situations to actually either make them comply with our bylaw or force an owner to make them comply?
Not within my powers and duty as tree warden. So in that situation, if that condition is specifically solely on private property, how you would measure a tree or a bush's location, and it extends into the right-of-way, that owner has a duty to ensure that they are not obstructing the right-of-way. What I do in our policies and procedures is I'm less tree warden, and I'm more an agent of the Board of Selectmen, or sorry, Select Board. And I would provide notice to the owner to self-correct, and then monitor if they're able to do so. Sometimes they're not able to do so. You know, each situation is really fit for purpose for that. If it's something that can't be self-corrected and I cannot correct that, or the highway supervisor is not able to correct that through without trespass, then we may, you know, exercise the rules within the bylaw. But sometimes I think that brings in the building commissioner, I think, for sight lines and corners. So it gets a little bit more complicated.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to, we've had several complaints over the last year or so about particular visibility issues, and I just wanted to make sure that we all knew and the public knew how they get dealt with. So that was the basis of my questions.
Yeah, if I could just add one little piece to that. So some owners are very sensitive with their ornamental bushes, so we try to be sensitive to their wants and needs, as well as not coming in and just hacking something back to the right-of-way. So it's really a conversation to try to find a win-win for that, but it can be very difficult.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the very detailed explanation of the process. It's as you described, it's a complicated situation. It's probably a series of conversations back and forth. So the public should know that it's taken very seriously, and safety is a paramount concern. You know, sometimes the wheels don't move quite as fast as we'd like, but when things do occur like that, let us know, and we'll try to take as prompt action as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Mrs. Coughlin?
Question. You had mentioned bushes or shrubs. So shrubs fall under the same sort of, the policies for the tree policy, the same sorts of provisions under, so let me, an example, the corner of 1 West Street and Oakwood. There's a house on the corner that has 8-foot-high shrubs. The shrubs go out into the sidewalk. If a neighbor complains because the children have to cross the street at an intersection to reach the bus and there's no clear vision, what should that resident do in terms of resolving overgrown shrubs onto sidewalks and/or obscuring the line of sight?
So for that situation, something like that would not be in our tree policy. That's something that's on private property. So what I would do is I would record that as a concern. I would validate that concern and see if there's any egregious obstruction of the right-of-way or the sidewalk. If, in that situation, if that bush or hedge line is, reasonably well maintained, I might notice the owner through a letter, just say, I received this concern, please be mindful of the sightline concern there. If it's a specific bylaw violation, that's outside my powers and duties.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to comment on that? Do you want to mention on that particular one, or that was just a general question about the more of the policy?
I would
Okay.
love you to mention that particular one. Still getting emails about it.
The one on Oakland?
Oakland and 1 West.
Okay. Well, I'll confirm the current status of that, and I'll report back to the board if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. Okay.
Fine.
Any other comments?
Move we adopt the new shade tree policy.
Okay, that's moved by Mr. Sidney. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right.
Go ahead. You can do it, Bruce.
I'll do it. Can't let Paul have all the fun.
In discussion, though? In discussion, though, again, I thank you for not only demonstrating the complexity and all that goes into this, but also the willingness and openness of the town team to work with community members. I think a lot of times people are at the end of the process or get involved at the end of the process and don't realize how many attempts and how open we are to having these conversations, and you lead by example, Art. So I really appreciate the sensitivity you bring to the community, and as well as the team that you work with at DPW. So thank you.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would just add that we had a few lessons learned in the last go-around that I think I commend both Mr. Goodhind and Mr. Westerling for being proactive in looking at this policy again and figuring out the best way to work through it, to communicate it, and to make sure that we're ahead of this, as Mr. Joseph alluded to, that we get people involved sooner rather than later, and that people know exactly what their rights are and what the town's responsibilities are, so there's no confusion. So that's, excuse me, a real plus. I also would implore you to have meetings when there are tree hearings, not to have them in the afternoon. I think that was our painful lesson this go around. So my soapbox for tonight, I guess. So
It's more of your stump speech, wasn't it?
I knew you were going to say that. Oh, no.
Oh, gosh.
You went out on a limb on that one. All right,
Oh, please. Let's stop now.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Goodhind and Mr. Westerling.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are on to Charles River Dam update, and I think this is over to you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. as we're moving forward from investigation of what to do with the dam into the actual moving forward with plans for the removal based on the board's decision. This is transitioning more into a project management role. So Mr. Spratt is going to be here to talk about the dam this evening and the work that we're doing with GZA, as well as the members of the staff on the town. And then we're going to talk very briefly with Mr. Farley just on a different initiative, but we wanted to update the board just in terms of a recent grant that we received and how that will tie into a different initiative related to the parks joining either side of the spillway. So, Mr. Spratt.
Yeah, pull up the presentation.
We're going on now. Can you just...
While that's loading, I'll just introduce myself. Bill Spratt, Executive Director of Public Works and Facilities. I've been asked to be the project lead for the Charles River Dam projects in partnership with our town engineer, Bill McDowell, who's online, and from the Recreation and Park side, Travis Farley, who's here as well. Okay. Next slide, please.
We can,
Perfect.
yeah. Thank you, Paul.
So tonight we're really just providing a brief update. This is the first of what I would probably consider quarterly updates as we get more information. We want to be in front of you often. I know this is kind of a hot button topic for the town. And we're in a phase now where this is really turning into a project with deliverables, and we want to make sure we're transparent with this project along the way. There are really three work streams that are happening here. One is safety and compliance, which will be led through Public Works in partnership with our public safety teams and our consulting engineer, GZA. We have the removal and river restoration, which again will be Public Works in partnership with our Concom and other partners there. And then we have the Recreation and Parks Riverfront Park improvements, which is a separate project, but has a similar timeline, and it would be best if we could coordinate those efforts with permitting and with wetland delineation and those type of things. There's a lot of synergies we can hopefully take advantage of there. So those are the three workflows. I'm going to go into a little detail on each of them. So safety and compliance is essentially what we've been doing, what we need to continue to do. I have some updates there. We are required under the Office of Dam Safety to do twice a year inspections of the dam. That we are currently up to date. Our last one was in March. Our current one is due this month. We're working on that right now. So we are up to date on those inspections. We have one condition that we need to address, which we're working on right now, which is signage and buoys that we need to put in. The current status of that is I have a drawing from GZA of where the signage should be. I have dimensions of the signs. We have a buoy company that we're partnering with, and I'm hoping to get, in partnership with Claire, I spoke with her today, get on the Concom so we can get a permit to put those buoys in place. I've also talked with with Chief Ferschke, and we're going to try to do that with the fire department's rescue boat. So that's the status of the buoys. And then the other piece of that puzzle is keeping up to date on our emergency action plan. We have an emergency action plan that hasn't changed. We do need to update contacts, and I'm working in partnership with Chief Hicks on that, and our public safety officials. There is no imminent threat for a dam failure, but if we did have an event, we want to make sure we communicate downstream. Next slide, please. All right, there we go. As far as the removal of the dam and the river restoration, we're in the beginning phases of this. I'll get into that in more detail in a second. But essentially, this is a 2 to 3 year phase. The majority of the time there is in permitting. There's engineering work that will be done, but the permitting for this level of work is extensive. That permitting could take up to 2 years. So we're currently working on that. We're fortunate to receive a dam and seawall grant of $250,000. We'll be using that money for some of the preliminary work. We're working with GZA right now. Once we move on from that phase 1, the actual demolition of the dam is really not that complicated. It's a 3 to 6 month project once we get all the permits and notifications in place. We are going to keep updated on this project using natickma.gov/crdam. And that has updated information. We're going to keep updating that so we can be as transparent as possible through this process. Next slide, please.
Could you go back for a second? Yeah, there's a comment there about winter deliverables.
The next slide will answer that question.
Very good, thank you.
So here's a Gantt chart for work that's going on right now. The arrows in green really highlight the work that's going on right now. We've done wetland delineation, outreaching to the partners of this project, continuing with engineering analysis, and really that winter deliverable is a 30% design, which will get us to a place where we can start getting those permits. We have done some work. We just applied for project notification form, which is submitted to the Massachusetts Historical Commission. So that's really the first step of the permitting process. Once we have that 30% engineering design, then we can head towards the MIPA and other more major permits. So we will keep this updated online so everyone can see that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, if I may, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, the 30% design is strictly for the engineering of the dam area itself. This is not the park restoration or the building around that, or is this a comprehensive design?
Nope, that is specifically for the dam.
Thank you.
However, when we do our MIPA permitting and some of our permitting, we're going to keep a really tight eye on those projects. So we ideally wouldn't have to file 2 MIPA permits. We do some of our permitting that would engulf all of the work if it works out that way. We'll have to ask for a waiver on that, but that is a process that we're thinking of.
That's great.
I'm keeping Travis up to date on our side of the project. He's keeping me up to date on his side of the project. So we are really trying to partner and collaborate on that. So we will take advantage of all synergies that we can. So I'm just going to pause before I hand it off to Travis. Are there any questions regarding what I presented?
Ms. Coughlin?
We've talked in the past about sediment and environmental testing. Is that part of an ongoing plan? Has that been completed?
That will be completed. So part of the initial work will include hydraulic analyses, sediment transport models. There's a lot of engineering that goes with that.
Okay, so that's part of the engineering analysis?
Yes.
And then the second question I had is the dam and seawall grant notwithstanding, how much money do we have, you may not know this off the top of your head, but still available from town meetings allocation to continue doing this work?
So there are funds, I don't know the number off the top of my head. We are working with the grants that we have available first.
Okay. At some point, I'd love to get an idea of when we're going to have to go to town meeting and ask them for money.
So just an update on that, there was an initial portion that was borrowed for. There's still an appropriation of $1.2 million that we have not borrowed for.
Okay.
So those were at 2 separate town meetings. Our intent, as Mr. Spratt had said, is to move forward with all available grants that we have and continue to explore grants. Right now we have grant for design and engineering work. Our intent as we move forward with this would also be to apply for construction dollars for the removal if everything proceeds the way it is right now.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed.
Good question.
Okay, with that, I'm going to invite Travis up here, and he can talk about the recreation side.
And just of kind of note to the board as Travis jumps in, this is probably, we'll certainly be talking internally about these projects together, but we wanted to, at this point, also recognize that these are two different projects. Mm-hmm. So there are synergies between them. I think based on the recommendation of the committee that was formed to look at it, one of their big takeaways was don't miss an opportunity to try to have some synergies between the park work as well as the spillway removal. So we've taken that to heart. We are proceeding and moving forward with it. We have some good news to update on that, but I do want the public to understand that these are, different projects. So as we move forward with different initiatives, there'll be some overlap, but they will be separate.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you, Bill. Travis Farley, Deputy Director of Community Services for Park and Recreation. I'm here to update you on the park side of the house and to let everybody know that I will be taking the lead on the Riverfront Park Improvement Project. Obviously very excited about it. I'm here to give you a very high-level overview of the project thus far. And like Bill said, the goal is to keep everyone updated as we go. We're in the very early stages of this progress, and I'm obviously very thankful for Mr. Erickson and Mr. Marshall to entrust this project to me. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support and giving me the opportunity to take this lead. That's the overview. The next slide. So Natick was very fortunate to receive a state funding in late August. We were notified that we received the MVP Action Grant to support the development, public engagement, schematic design, and permit level design plans for improving the park surrounding the dam. Obviously, it was a big team effort. Jillian Wilson-Martin, Claire Rondelli, conservation agent, John, Mr. Spratt were also obviously key contributors. It was a total team effort. Very excited that we got the grant. The primary focus of the South Natick Dam Park, the primary focus of the grant is the South Natick Park, also known as Old Town Park, Grove Park, and the South Natick Multi-Purpose Court. The objective is to improve the climate resilience of the open spaces through nature-based solutions, maximize the expanded river access provided by dam removal, increase connectivity across open space areas, improve access and accessibility, environmental justice, and in priority populations, and acknowledge and incorporate indigenous history, wisdom throughout the park. During the process, we'll also be looking at the Honeywell baseball fields as well, from a concept perspective as well. So that's that slide. Does anybody have any questions on that side of the house before I move on to the next slide?
Just a question on what I know it's early days, but what do you have in mind for the Honeywell? Is it the resilience of the field area, or?
It's too early to tell. I think it, yeah.
I think, in applying for the grant, one of the things that some of our initial conversations with the team from MVP who awarded the grant, they wanted to see kind of a holistic approach in looking at this area, recognizing that Honeywell is a large parcel of land kind of surrounding the park system within it. We want to look at ways to mitigate runoff in that area. So looking at ways to enhance those fields to collect more water so that it doesn't run into the river. It just seemed like a good tie-in. So as part of the work that we're going to be doing, we are going to be looking at that from a high level standpoint, diving a little bit deeper into the park system with north and south of the dam area, as well as the courts will probably be the primary focus, looking at a high level with the fields.
That's excellent. I was hoping that was one of the focuses. Okay, Mr. Joseph.
I'm sorry, Mr. Farley, could you just read the indigenous reference with acknowledging?
Acknowledging and incorporating indigenous history and wisdom throughout the parks.
Okay, so history and wisdom. So I'm assuming we're reaching out for feedback, and it's not just a backwards look, but a forwards look as well?
Correct.
So it's-
Obviously, a big portion of the project will be in community engagement on all parties across the board.
Yep. No, and it just, I'm assuming this is the case, but I think it's really important. We've added a lot of staff and done a lot of reflection as a community and incorporated a lot of that reflection into our administration. So even having a diversity, equity, and outreach individual now at a director level working with this group and the types of work that we're doing, it's important for the community to hear that we're integrating all of these different disciplines and lenses on the work that we're doing moving forward. So I really appreciate that, and it's showing in your highest priority. So thank you.
We appreciate that. Yeah, and it's a two-year grant, and you'll see on the next slide, community engagement is big on both years, so that'll be a big aspect of the project.
Thank you.
Next slide. So we were kicking off working on wrapping up a contract with Weston Sampson. The grant contract will be a 2-year in total, and I've listed out the tasks identified and the grant of each fiscal year on this slide. We anticipate there being a lot of public engagement, like we just indicated, in this project. We're going to be meeting weekly to develop meeting within a week or two to develop a plan aspect of this work with the community engagement piece. As we get going, we'll be creating a project page, most likely on the Recreation and Parks Department website, to keep the public up to date on how the project's going. And we are similar to the page, as Bill mentioned, we hope to keep the public on track in the project, alert them of any engagement opportunities that we have coming up as well. So it'll not only be an opportunity to keep the public up to date, but it'll be also to alert them of any engagement opportunities that we have coming up for the parks as well. As we get the project underway, I'm also going to be hoping to get back in touch to keep the board up to date as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that you're going to create a project page for the parks. Let's make sure that the 2 project pages are cross-linked so that people, really clearly cross-linked, so people who go to the dam page and are interested in parks can find it.
Yep.
Really easily. I think that's really critically important, because in all of our communications and with the public and in our dam hearings and conversations I've had with people at the farmers market, they're always more interested. They talk about the dam, but they're more interested in the parks. Mm-hmm. So it's a critical component of the project. I realize that they're logically separate, but they really have to go together. And so let's make sure the public knows that they really are going together, and that we're really working on them.
Thank you, Mr. Sidney. Great comment. Any other questions? Concerns? Okay. Thank you very much, Travis and Bill. This is a great update. And John, sorry, didn't mean to give you a short shrift there. This is a great update.
Sorry, Bill's going to wrap it up here. I apologize. Almost forgot.
If I may, if there's just one more slide that would kind of lead to Mr. Sidney's question.
I didn't read ahead, Bill.
This just highlights the project coordination, and you can see from the years and the lineup, they really should mesh well. So this is just a high-level view of the different phases and how those projects should be able to mesh together.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. Even better.
Mr. Chair, just, one of the things kind of following the presentation from both Mr. Spratt and Mr. Farley, and thank you both for your work and effort and the effort of your teams on this as well, is kind of that engagement piece. And I know it was something that Mr. Joseph, you had brought up maybe 6 months ago, with the decision on removal or keeping of the dam. There was a committee that was formed on that with various park projects in the past. We have had committees. We also have a Recreation and Parks Commission that's advisory. We also have an opportunity, even without forming a board or committee, to have public engagement and to activate and engage the public along the way. So regardless which approach we take, that is going to be first and foremost. We know that the parcel has had a lot of attention, and we want to make sure we make a right decision engaging with the public in terms of what it should look like down there for future years. years. So it's going to be heavy in terms of what we do with public engagement, as Mr. Farley had mentioned previously, but there are certainly paths forward, and we're happy to have a conversation at maybe the next select board meeting in terms of what we want that to look like, but there are different paths that we can take to get to a similar result. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Evans?
All right.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I couldn't agree more. Fewer committees, the better. I'm always more of a fan of a task force than a committee, something that's focused, and that's why I kind of gave the shout out to Mr. Ryan before. I think the more we're focused on specific outcomes and specific objectives, how we go about it is less important, as long as we're true to what we're trying to achieve. I see Mr. Westerling is here as well. Had a great meeting with him and the team actually a few months ago. It was probably a couple months ago with the board of Keep Natick Beautiful, which is an organization I mentioned before. I think it's really important for the public's benefit, especially given the public engagement with the South Natick Dam. Mental health was a big part of the concerns that people had. Being outdoors, being in nature, being in our community is a big part of managing healthy mental health state. I think this, and I'd like to see this in our forthcoming meeting, the discussion of getting involved in community organizations or public engagement opportunities with the town itself. These are great opportunities to get out of the house, join your neighbors, join your specific neighborhoods, and actually take a piece of this and own that moving forward. I've quoted it, I think, a couple of times throughout the dam process, but the notion that Native Americans talk about their obligations and not their rights. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us to borrow that philosophy and really think about our obligations to being stewards of this property for the next 100 years. And for those that were disappointed in our decision, to please get involved. You own it today. It's the grandchildren that are going to own it next. And I think it's really important that we start with these types of moves. So couldn't be happier with the team of people I'm looking at in the room right now, and those of you that are online that have contributed to this so far. So I think the community should be proud, and if you have any comments to make, I hope you also walk with that talk. Thank you.
That was a tremendous comment, and I really sincerely appreciate the sentiment in that, and going through the deliberations on dam removal versus restoration. It was clear to me that this was an area that needed to be not only addressed, but solicit community involvement on what their vision was for this area. We're taking away something that they valued, and we need to replace it with something they will value, excuse me, and their future generations will value, the indigenous peoples will value. But to Mr. Joseph's point, let's get involved in that. There'll be plenty of opportunity to get involved, and we encourage you to stay involved. Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Farley, Mr. Spratt, Mr. Westerling, and Mr. Marshall. Appreciate all the work that's gone into that. It's clear, that it's clear that a lot of extensive planning has gone into this, and thank you again for the update.
And Ms. Wilson Martin, who's online, and Ms. Rendelli as well.
I'm sorry.
And Mr. McDowell?
I'm sorry, I forgot completely about Zoom land.
Bill is there too. Yep, Mr. McDowell. Yes.
Thank you very much for all your work. Thank you for that.
Jillian's giving us a heart.
Yeah, thanks, Jillian.
She did. Bill gave us a thumbs up. Yeah. We're getting the ratings up here. All right. All right. Mr. Townsend, I assume that you're here for the vote to establish the useful life of department equipment tasers. Correct?
That's
two items. Okay.
Correct,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. A couple of votes tonight.
Okay.
I just get some of a complex. I get up here and the room clears out. So,
don't take it personally, John.
So we're here tonight to take two votes with regards to a lease purchase finance agreement. It's a two-step process. you go through tonight, but just before I get started on the actual procedures that we need to go through, just like to say a quick review on the actual procurement itself, which you'll be hearing a lot more about in the future from Mr. Marshall as well as from Chief Hicks. But this is regarding the purchasing of taser equipment for the police department. It is a important equipment for the police, and definitely needs to be replaced, because one of the issues that they did have over the past year since the last procurement of these particular devices is a difficult time with them being the inability to replace parts on it and get service on it because of the change in the models with regards to they went from Model 7 to Model 10 and they just couldn't get the cartridges. A difficult time. Chief Hicks took it upon himself to engage the vendor in it. Axon is a company that produces the taser. They actually are the sole source of these particular things. They're the only company that's actually certified by the state to supply these devices to police departments in Massachusetts. But he approached them and has had talks with them about coming up with a sort of bundled approach towards the procurement, and that all of the cartridges and the batteries and the service and the actual holsters and everything would be bundled into one sort of purchase and then sort of spread over a period of 5 years. So we'd be ensured that we would have continuous supplies with regards to these support for these devices through the entire 5 years of this lease purchase finance agreement. So once again, you'll hear a lot more about that from Mr. Marshall and the chief as that procurement goes on. But tonight we're we're focusing on the funding process here, and that's a lease purchase finance agreement. Lease purchase finance agreements are authorized by Chapter 44, Section 21C of the Massachusetts General Laws, and it has basically a 3-step process. First of all, what we're doing tonight is we're going to determine that what we're purchasing, tasers, are indeed a capital asset that is eligible to be financed by debt. Now, as you recall from other times I've stood up in front of you with regards to debt, the first thing we do, of course, is establish the useful life of the product. It has to be at least 5 years. We are recommending that you vote a 5-year useful life for these products, and that's going to be the first vote you're going to take. And then the second step in the process is that you do have to recommend to town meeting that the lease purchase finance agreement is the way to go with regards to purchasing these particular products. I have prepared a vote for you. That's the recommendation to town meeting. I'll sort of go through that and just a little bit about what those sort of structures are. And then the final step in this whole process is going to be, it's going to be the procurement, of course, but the next step, the third step, will be authorization by town meeting. And that is one of the capital articles, Article 7, Motion C, that basically is going to say that based upon the recommendations from yourselves, the select board, town meeting is authorizing the entering into of a lease purchase finance agreement for the purchase of tasers, and that you are authorized as the select board to sign those contracts and go move forward with that procurement. Now, one thing that you will note with regards to these particular votes, recommendations, and everything, it is very much sort of a generic sort of approach towards this. We don't mention any sort of vendors. And of course, there's only one vendor for this product, but it is something which, we do go through the procurement process. We do go through the financing process separately and distinctively, and, it will be done in accordance with 30B and other sort of laws with regards to this. In essence, the lease purchase agreement is treated like debt. So one of the appropriations you're going to see when we get to the omnibus budget is that there is $25,000 for, I think it was $25,000 for the first year payment on the lease. Every year after that, for the next 4 years, it will actually be rolled into the debt service payment, as any other sort of debt payment would be. Payments are made to the vendor are actually tax exempt. So we finance it, then there's benefits to the people who loan this money to us, and then we may refund this with a bond issue. Of course, it's a 5-year lease, so I don't think that's really going to be a possibility, but that is available to us. And then finally, of course, the use of these particular products have to be exclusively for municipal purposes. I don't think there's too much doubt about that. So that's basically the finance agreement. I would like to just to take any questions you might have, and then if I can share my screen, I'll put up the votes where I did a couple of tweaks to the votes since you had it in your packet. I'll go through those for you, sort of minor things.
Do you have printouts that I can read from then if there are tweaks?
I do, absolutely, yes.
Because I was going to work off of Novus, and if Novus is wrong.
Yes, for some particular reason, I felt that it was June when I was drafting them. Of course, it's not, it's October. So, unfortunately.
Bruce? I do have a question before he goes.
Thanks,
Any
Sean.
questions from the board?
Questions?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one general question. I was going to bring this up in select board concerns based on some feedback on an email I exchanged with the town administrator, but as a municipal customer for such highly specialized equipment with one state-approved vendor, is this a good example of something that could be a regionalized purchase? You know, can we collaborate with other communities and get economies of scale, access to spare parts? I mean, I look at things like this, it just seems like such a monopolistic supply and such a unique application, yet every community needs these things. You know, is that something that has been explored or could be explored? No, I'm not saying for this particular issue, it's just more of a general question.
I don't know the details on this one. I haven't talked to Chief Hicks. John, did Chief mention anything about regional procurement on this one?
No.
Okay.
But just to that particular issue, this actually is the preferred method, but lease purchase finance agreements are used by a lot of police departments in the purchase of these particular products. In fact, TN, the assistant finance director, who used to be the budget director for the city of Lowell, actually went through this process with the city of Lowell Police Department about a year ago or so. So it's very sort of common sort of, but once again, there is only one approved vendor, so whether that would be, a useful sort of thing, I just really can't say. Chief Hicks could probably weigh in that a little bit more when you get into the procurement process.
Well, the negotiator in me is feeling like you have more leverage when you have one supplier, but you have one buyer. It makes it a little more equal.
Yeah, we do utilize regional procurement for a number of things, especially in the public safety world. Usually it's MAPC or a state contract that we're tapping into from a regional procurement perspective. And I would be interested to know from the chief if this is a viable candidate, because I know we do some other public safety equipment through an MAPC regional procurement and some other regional procurement through the state contracts. So sorry? Yeah, we tap whatever we can for some of these regional procurements.
No doubt.
Yep.
Thank you.
So that's something that you could follow up on and see if we can maybe reduce the fee?
It might be a bit too late for this one, but we can certainly explore it for this one or in the future. Yep.
Okay.
Just kind of a note on that, we do explore every avenue when it comes to purchasing of stuff. So we do explore the state bid list. We do explore those cooperative agreements. There's language related to public safety equipment that does tie back to the state bid list on several items. This is one that, we've actually explored on, different sections within it. So we do our due diligence. Our staff does a terrific job of trying to find those opportunities, and we even have some negotiating leverage sometimes, even if it is on the state bid list. So we seek every opportunity we can to reduce the cost to the taxpayers, and we take that very seriously in looking at our processes.
Mr. Marshall?
I appreciate that very much.
I had a question. Could you just tell me what the state bid list is?
So the state bid list is basically purchases that are basically agreements that the state has entered into that municipalities have the ability to execute as well. So they're blanket contracts that are open that municipalities can take part of. With those, they've already gone through the procurement process. So they've already bid it. They've already got quotes and estimates back. And those prices are usually pretty favorable. So we look for those. We look to explore those when we can, as well as some of our other procurement options that we have.
Some of them are computers and vehicles, and there's a whole host of things.
Sometimes services, they're all over the spectrum of use. Sometimes it's not in our best interest, or some things are just not covered by them, so we do have to still bid them or do a procurement process on our own.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Carry on, John.
Certainly. So if we could start off with their useful life, we are recommending a useful life of 5 years for this particular product, a taser. The total amount for this project is going to be about $260,000. I think it's 259 something, but basically $260,000.
So you gave me 3 copies of this. One of them says 250,000. The other 2 say, yeah. So this is get this straight, please, before I start reading.
You can sign 2 copies of it once you get done.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm glad I pre-read it.
Yep. All right, you ready, Mr.?
Yeah, let's go.
Rip.
I, the clerk of the Select Board of the Town of Natick, Massachusetts, certify that at a meeting of the board held September 20th, not September 20th, today's
October 4th.
October 4th, (2023), of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present. The following vote was unanimously passed, all of which appears upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted that the maximum useful life of the departmental equipment listed below to be financed with a lease purchase financing agreement for the acquisition of equipment that may be acquired through the issuance of debt under General Law, Chapter 44, to be authorized by the vote of town meeting is as follows. Tasers in the amount of about $260,000 under 2023 Fall Annual Town Meeting, Article 7, Motion C, for a maximum useful life of 5 years. I further certified that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays prior to the time of the meeting, and remained so posted at the time of the meeting so that no deliberations or decision in connection with the subject matter of this vote were taken in executive session, all in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25 as amended, and I so move.
Second.
Second, thank you. Moved by Mr. Sidney, seconded by Mr. Joseph. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's a 4-0 vote. Now comes the fun part, Mr. Sidney.
Give me 1 second.
I should repeat that it was moved by Mr. Sidney and seconded by Mr. Joseph.
I, the clerk of the Select Board of the Town of Natick, Massachusetts, the town certified that at a meeting of the board held October 4th, 2023, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following vote was unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Whereas the police department of the town of Natick needs to procure tasers for the operations of the department. Whereas Axon Taser Model 10 is approved by the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security for use by Massachusetts police departments and is available with holsters, batteries, cartridges, maintenance program, and instructor certification through a lease purchase finance agreement. Whereas in order to procure the tasers in an expeditious manner and ensure appropriate service during the useful life of the taser, a lease purchase financing agreement is appropriate, and therefore the Select Board hereby votes to recommend that the tasers be procured under General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 21C, a lease purchase finance agreement for the acquisition of tasers equipment that may be acquired through the issuance of debt under General Law, Chapter 44. The term of such agreement not to exceed 5 years. The useful life of the equipment is determined by the Select Board, and the town administrator and police department shall be authorized to enter into such agreement on behalf of the town. The town administrator and the chief of police are authorized to take any and all actions to execute delivery of such documents as may be determined by them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing vote. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, time, date, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.032B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, prior to the time of the meeting, and remain so posted at the time of the meeting. That no deliberations or decision in connection with the lease purchase finance agreement were taken in executive session, all in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, as amended, and I so move.
I'll second that, and I'll give you a breather. All in favor, say aye.
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 4-0-0 vote. That's moved by Mr. Sidney, and I seconded it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor,
Just one thing, I would like to thank Gloria Wong, who's hung in with me to this late date. She is actually recently promoted to the position of budget and financial analyst for the town.
Hey.
Hey, Gloria.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, and John, you should know that we actually, I believe last meeting, voted to recommend favorable action on this article. I think we did, right? Did we?
Part of a.
I think it was part of the capital
funding article. This
Oh,
is
okay,
part
so no, we didn't. Okay, my mistake. My bad.
You were talking about the prudent investor rule.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Thank you for that one.
Either way, it's good.
Either way, yep. Thank you, Mr. Townsend. Rhode Island Avenue, RFP results. Mr. Marshall?
Sure. I'll let John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. LeBlanc and I last week had the opening for the bids for Rhode Island Ave. We received one bid from D&D Realty, and the amount for that bid was $50,000. So, you know, the kind of at this point, it's the pleasure of the board in terms of what steps it would like to take moving forward. As noted in the RFP, we will still kind of review the layout and the final design working with them. But if the board so chooses, we can move forward to the negotiating component.
Purchase and sale.
So the next steps would basically be to authorize town administration and/or one of you or a group or what have you to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement. We do have some understanding of the terms because that was outlined in the RFP, whereby, for example, if there's any utilities located in the Rhode Island Avenue, we want to make sure easements are in place. Pedestrian access to Route 9 is kept. There's a portion that does extend down in front of the fire station, so we'd want to make sure that we retain the rights to that portion and the like. But that would all be part of sort of a negotiated process, and that was outlined in the RFP as all or a portion of Rhode Island Avenue. So we're just looking for authorization to start that process. We only have one respondent, so it's really kind of, do you want to go with this respondent in a negotiation or not?
And this respondent is basically the owners of Scrub-a-Dub?
Yes.
This sort of tracks what our expectations
They
are.
own both sides of the property.
Questions?
Rhode Island Avenue.
No, I think we should move forward. I guess I defer to administration's advice, and how much do you want involvement versus do you feel like, given this has been a pretty clear cut situation, I think, and you're aware of the situation of protecting the fire department's access and the like. So, do you feel there's additional value to be had with a board member, or do you feel it would be more expedient to just run with it, so to speak?
I always welcome a board member to at least have a sounding board as we get into negotiations. I don't know if we need to, because I'd probably want to work with counsel, Karis, on actually talking counsel to counsel, lawyer to lawyer to come up with the terms. But it'd be great to have an appointee of the board, just so that we can bounce those things off. That can be the chair. I know in the past it was typically like Mike Hickey, who was a former member of the board, just because he could help, and it was really beneficial, even if it wasn't to attend meetings with who we're negotiating with. It was more just to have that ability before we come back to the full board to say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I don't think we're going to have a lot of issues here. It's fairly straightforward, but you never know, and I just wouldn't mind having that sounding board. Whether it could just be you, Bruce. You can.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
But it's up to
the
the
board's amenable to that. So, yeah. So I'm looking for a motion.
Move to authorize administration to negotiate a purchase and sale for Rhode Island Avenue.
Moved by Mr. Sidney. A seconder.
I'll second.
Mr. Joseph. All in favor?
In discussion,
I keep doing that.
It's
I'm
all
sorry.
right. It's all right. You're trying to move the meeting along. It's okay. I appreciate that. Just in terms, it sounds like you're fine working with the administration on that. I know you're doing the same with Solid House. I'm just sensitive to the time commitment of you're taking on a lot, so I'm available if you'd like to delegate it, but no, take it if you want it. I feel like you sometimes take a lot because you're sitting in chair, and I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to delegate.
You have more of the work-life balance than I do, so I'm.
I volunteer for the light lift stuff, though. And so,
Well, and I'm mostly retired. You could delegate to me.
I'm fully retired. I'm wholeheartedly retired and
I'm just
committed
tired.
to volunteers. Yeah, all right. Moving right along.
Well, we need to vote.
Got to vote this.
We did vote that.
No, we didn't.
No, that was
we moved
discussion.
it.
That was, that's right. I said
Discussion,
it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 400. Thank you. Keeping me honest. All right. Moving ahead. 2024 licensing fees. We need to discuss whether to hold a public hearing to modify license fees. And Ms. Donovan provided us with the current fee structure. And correct me if I'm wrong. My recollection is that we held off changing these fees last year because we were looking at businesses recovering from a post-COVID world. So we thought it wasn't the best time to do it, but I'd at least like to have a public hearing to discuss it. And I thought Ms. Donovan mentioned that there are some areas where we're not competitive with other communities and others where we're, a relative bargain in some areas. So I'd like the opportunity to discuss what we can do and what's appropriate or not. And we may not changing a single thing, but I'd like the opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think my recollection was last year that we were of the agreement that the package stores had fully recovered and really had never suffered. But since the hotels were still lagging slightly, we, instead of bringing their fees completely up to what they were pre-pandemic, we gave them kind of a half of, we raised it just kind of a half of a point. And the other thing on the current fee schedule that I would look forward to us discussing is the fees for package stores, the breakdown by square footage. That's something else I had looked at. So I would agree if you're moving to schedule a public hearing, Bruce, I would second that.
Do we need a motion, or we just advise that we want to do it?
I don't think you need a motion.
I don't think we need a motion,
let's
but we
just
do
decide we
need
do
to provide public notice. Right.
Yeah.
That's all.
Let's do it.
So let's schedule a public hearing.
So do we want to schedule a public hearing, say November 1st? Because that gives us the 3
That one's
weeks.
starting to feel like it's really busy.
Just from a timing perspective, we do need to set fees soon so that we can allow people to submit their applications for their license renewal processes, which does typically take place in the November to early December timeframe.
Yeah, that's why I was
So
trying to get it
November 1
early.
is kind of an ideal. I think in years past, it's challenging because October is a bit of a wonky month for the select board this year. In years past, we would have had a couple more opportunities in October, so November 1st seems to be the most logical next meeting.
Most expedient, yeah.
We're also meeting, we have a retreat on the 25th.
Yep.
Would you want to do it just before the retreat? Or is that
Could do that.
doing that too much? Is that too much?
Then we have to, when would we have to post for that?
Typically, it's 14 days,
It's
I
14,
believe.
okay, I
Yeah,
thought it might be
7.
21. Okay. Do you want to do that the 25th if we can?
If I can, just give leeway when we can talk to Donna Donovan to confirm the posting requirements, and it will either be the 25th or the 1st, depending on the posting requirements.
Good.
Just for historic sake, we did last year and going into this year, sort of the end of the pandemic fee forgiveness.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic, we were looking at a policy of trying to look at fee adjustments each year so that we didn't do a massive fee adjustment every like 10 or 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
The board at that time was looking at doing it every year. And the pandemic hit, we reduced all the fees, and then we had a program over the next few years where we started to bring some of the fees back to what were pre-pandemic levels. So, just for context.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, if when we get to that public hearing, if you kind of give us maybe a table that shows the fees across years so that we can sort of see what the trending was. And,
okay.
Yeah, that would
right? And that'll give us an idea of maybe where, and also give us some comparatives especially for where our bargains are.
And it should be no surprise to the business in town, but I'm going to strongly advocate for the fortune teller to stay at $2.
I'm relieved to know that you're I don't think I want to know my fortune, actually. Right.
You're living it.
It really is $2?
$2. That's $2 well spent.
Just for context, I don't know if this is the case with this one, but some fees are actually set by the state, and we might not be able to have a select board change to them. I do not know if fortune tellers is one of those.
But we could go to the fortune teller and they could tell us.
Maybe they can tell us, exactly.
Okay, I think we're good on that one. So select board assignments, I've distributed the assignments and everybody is on board with that. I've put my hat into the ring, as Paul knows, on the Natick 180. So I will be coordinating with Paul to shadow him around and be at the next meeting. I missed the one this week because I didn't know about it in time. The other issue is the select board isn't permitted to be a member selected as one of the 4 appointed members of the Community Preservation Committee. I do have a question into town council as to whether a member can serve as a liaison to that community, so I haven't gotten an answer on that just yet, so I will continue to ask that question.
That will still leave Mr. Sidney with only one committee.
Right, which leads us to the Transportation Committee.
Oh, boy.
Good segue. So we can, offline, we can figure out how we're going to divvy that up. We'd hate to have you miss out on all the fun.
Well, and just want to report to the board, in attempting to schedule a meeting of the Audit Advisory Committee, it was requested by one member to delay until after town meeting.
Okay.
So I agreed to that, and I'll just let the board know when the meeting happens.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on committees? All right. On to the consent agenda. 9:30 p.m. It says right there.
Consent agenda. I'm going to read it and see if there's anything to remove. I will note that the stuff for the core golf request was added late to Novus, but it is there, and I did confirm it. So item A, vote to accept Wegmans' request to surrender their S12 and S15 all alcohol beverage licenses. Item B, approve request for exemption from town bylaws, Chapter 41, Section 4, for Patrick Conaway, Aaron Harris, Catherine Brown, and Christine Fleming. Item C, approve Select Board and Charter Bylaw Review Committee subcommittees minutes of 9/15/23. And item D, approve a one-day beer and wine license for Core Golf LLC for 10/17/23. Anything to pull?
No.
Do we need to pull it just to, if I have a question, or my
Just go with the question if you don't
the
feel.
question is just how many Section 12 and how many Section 15 licenses do we have? And I don't need an answer right now. If you,
We can get you that.
Just a follow-up.
it's not going to impact my vote on it either way.
we are going to...
And I move the consent agenda as read above.
Do I have a second? I'll second. So moved by Mr. Sidney, seconded by Mr. Evans. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 400. Town administrator notes. Do we have anything here?
I do have one quick note, well, I guess a couple notes, but one note just to report that the Mechanic Street lot, which abuts and is one of the access points and now parking lot for the Digital Rail Trail, is actually officially open and striped, and that was one of sort of a lingering project for the last several years, and we were able to accomplish it with a lot of the work of our public works staff. Claire Rendelli and the Concom, because it's technically a Concom-owned parcel, also is instrumental in getting that work done, and they have definitely improved with some accessibility spaces to the CRT. So that's a great benefit, added benefit to the rail trail for the community.
I did receive an email that thanked DPW not only for completing the project, but for having so many handicap spaces accessible.
Yeah.
So that was good.
I'm looking forward to the EV chargers.
We're working on that.
Yeah, I noticed. I just want to, there will be EV charges eventually at that lot, is what I've heard.
That's our intent, yeah. It's going to be, obviously EVs, you have to get the power there, it's a little more challenging, but yeah, our intent is that.
So I want to ask, since we're talking about EV charges, I was over at Pond Street, and I went to plug my car in, and one of the chargers was trouble lit.
Okay.
So I'm just going to, it seems like that particular charger, I think that's the oldest one in town.
Yeah, I think we're actually currently exploring upgrades to our EV charging stations in town. I don't have the time frame, but I know that's a project that we've been looking at doing. So
yeah, good. Okay.
I appreciate letting us know, though. That can certainly go, if you have C-Click Fix, you can put it through that, or just send a note into either me or Public Works, and we can get that on a list for fixing. Another thing, I mentioned earlier this evening to some of you members that there was a employee flu clinic. We're trying to get as many of our employees vaccinated as we can. There's also a public flu clinic upcoming on October 14th and October 18th. You can register online on natickma.org. If you just search for flu clinics, it'll pop up. The 14th is actually a drive-through at the Public Works Department. Those have been extremely successful in the past because you don't have to get out of your car, you just drive through. And then the other one is at the Community Senior Center. One is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and one is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So go online, register, get vaccinated. We at this time do not have COVID vaccines. These are just the flu vaccines, but they do have, we're working to try to get the COVID vaccine. We just don't have them at this time. Okay. And that's the announcements.
Is that something that we could get an update on if it should we have the ability to get a sufficient quantity of COVID vaccines? Can we publicize that as sort of late breaking news? Or?
Absolutely. I don't know if we would do it at the same clinic, just because we would need to run the numbers and see if it's possible for us to do that. Yeah. And they might be just separate clinics.
Okay.
I know I actually was able to just get an appointment at a local Walgreens, so they are available for COVID at Walgreens, CVS's, what have you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Also, one of the things that is important to say about the flu clinics is that you don't have to have insurance, medical insurance to do that. There's no charge for that.
Those are free.
Yeah. Okay. Select Board concerns? Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had received, assuming everyone's on the same distribution list for the MMA, back in September 25th, an email, basically the Healy Driscoll administration seeking feedback on policies and programs that could be of benefit to municipalities, and they were looking for input to flow through the MSA, Massachusetts Selectmen's Association. We received a follow-up email to the same one. The one that was sent in September said the due date was October 20th. The newest one says the deadline is Friday, October 13th. So if we are not meeting next week, the 11th, I did shoot a quick note to the administration just asking for input in terms of are there priorities or areas you think might be worthwhile. And because we're just kind of constrained for time, I wasn't sure. And honestly, whatever we provide to the MMA, it's going to be at best a bullet point in a long letter that they're sending. But I think it's more the discussion of where do we see it important to think in terms of changes as the Healy administration's going through their new process. They're also writing their economic development plan right now, and I've actually attended a couple of events and intend to send a letter to the Lieutenant Governor's office based on that. But I wanted to just ask the administration. This was a great email that Mr. Erickson sent back to me. I'd suggest I just forward it to the board, or if you want to forward it. But
Yeah, that's no problem.
is it a burden to ask you to kind of tighten it up and draft sort of what you think it is, or give us an opportunity to potentially provide feedback to have you send that along, or what's the best process for us to plug into the MMA, I guess is my question.
That's a great question, and I'm more than happy to send along the email that I sent to you, Paul, and those were just, again, running sort of ideas in my head, so by no means is that exhaustive, nor is it putting anything in a priority order. They're just things that I could see as, if we're looking towards state government to sort of improve operations, these are some things that I think I've heard a lot through the community work that I've been doing here in other communities, as well as just through the dialogue that we've had in the last couple of years around how do we make just government more efficient and run more smoothly. From that perspective, I'd welcome maybe it's just if I can send that email out and then individual feedback from board members, package that up into a letter, and then I can work with the chair, and either it can come from me or the chair.
Yeah, I'm totally open to that.
That sounds good.
That makes good sense. And then I would also suggest,
or we could do it jointly.
We'll figure that out, yeah. I think if it's the MSA, it probably should go from a select board member rather than a town administrator.
That's true. Very good point.
Right. And then maybe as a byproduct of that, I don't know when the next MWRC meeting is, but that could be another opportunity for the regional collaborative to have some input to the administration too. I think it's really important, especially in Metro West. We have to get aggressive on regionalization. We have to get aggressive on changing things and allowing us to do more. Again, I'll say like a county concept, which is pretty foreign in Massachusetts, or at least close to Boston. And I'm really nervous. I'm appreciative of the administration looking at this stuff, but I also feel like it's that energy of a new administration, and it's going to be once Boston weighs in on things. So the more we can hit them with regional priorities from different sources, I think it's better.
While they're looking for feedback.
Yeah, it's actually just Middlesex County that is foreign too, because the county went bankrupt about 20 years ago.
Well, but just the concept of collaborative management. Additionally, I hosted office hours at the Senior Community Center last Thursday, and a couple of questions did come up from members of the public. I will summarize this in an email, but just for the administration's benefit, the safety meeting was postponed this week, but there were concerns raised by one citizen about through truck traffic that's servicing Walnut Hill School, cutting through like Charles Street, and trying to think of a couple other streets that were mentioned. So the question was, should we, or do we have, and should we add potentially a vehicle weight limit on some of those roads back there, because the size of the trucks, I guess, I don't know if they were diverted because of the construction on North Main Street, if something had changed, or it just happens to be that's the shortest route to Walnut Hill from Route 27, but that was one of the concerns. I was going to bring it to the safety committee to look at. But
yeah, I would forward that to the chief and deputy chief Luzon. If you can copy us just so we can track it as well.
Will do.
I don't know the details, so I'd want to explore that further, or at least have the chief and somebody from the police department explore that further to inform the conversation.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. The second of three was a question about OPEB. Where are we with investments in other employee benefits, and it's sort of the requirement that we have to cover our outstanding obligations? Don't expect you to know it off the top of your head, but maybe at some point, for the benefit of the public, maybe as we're going through the budgeting process, talk about what that is and maybe give an update on where we are, what our strategy is.
A lot of the most current update information is, well, it might not be updated to today, but we do cover that pretty extensively in the budget report, in the budget document. So the FY24 budget document, which is available on the town's website, which is dated back to, the May-April timeframe, will have that information as an appendix in there for OPEB liability and the like.
And funding, where we are today. I was shown.
Yeah, it should have the analysis.
I was shown a document that showed we basically, with rounding, have invested zero, which didn't seem consistent with where we are. I know we've been fighting it steadily, and I just didn't have the numbers handy or knew where to go to get that information.
We have. I mean, to be fair, we have not been been putting a lot towards our OPEB. We've been more focused on some other, like retirement and other, what is it, sorry?
Pension.
Yeah, pension liability. That pension liability, based on our actuarial studies, we should be up to funding by 2030, at which point we can then target OPEB a little more deliberately. But we did pause during the pandemic, but we do typically put $250,000, $300,000 a year towards OPEB. By no means is it addressing the full extent of the issue, but it is showing our commitment to continue to address it. But there is more analysis in the budget report.
Great, thank you. And then last, there was a question about abandoned property at 11 Harvard Street. Mr. Marshall happened to walk in while I was talking to that constituent, so congratulations, and I'm sorry for the timing. But it was just more that, just as a rule, I think you already kind of took note, but just as I said, I'll put a note together for you just as a follow-up. But it sounded like when there are abandoned parcels, especially small ones, it's not practical to address them one off at a time, and we do take them sort of in a batch process as they come together. This particular parcel has been abandoned, it sounds like, for 20 or 30 years. It's been quite extensive, so I just wanted to know at some point, and again, I'll send this, so I don't expect an answer tonight, but just as for my peers' benefit.
It's Harvard, not Hartford.
Harvard, yes.
Just for the public's acknowledgement, because this does come up kind of at times, sometimes the cost associated with determining the deed, if it's a clean title that we have on the parcel, who owns it, what else might be required with that, takes some time and resources. Typically with parcels, historically the town has tried to package those together, and most municipalities will try to do that. They'll try to package a number of parcels together so that we can get council involved once, and we have economies of scale with the work that has to be done in tracking some of that. So my understanding, it has been a couple of years since we've done that, but certainly something that is now kind of on our radar. So appreciate it.
Thank you. And my fear for this one is it's been looked at before, and I don't know if it's fallen through the cracks or what's gone on, but that's, yeah.
Okay, sorry, which address again on Harvard?
11 Harvard.
11 Harvard, okay, thank you.
Harvard, right?
Yes.
Harvard, yeah, we've established that.
Is in that hack educational institution. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
Have it. Exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? The select board? Okay. Correspondence. Nobody writes, nobody sends letters.
Well, didn't we get notification of a piece of correspondence this afternoon?
Which, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, we got an email from Donna about a piece of correspondence that was hand-delivered.
Something the administration is looking into. It has to do with a complaint about a neighbor not mowing.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I think that's just I think I'm just acknowledging the correspondence.
Yeah, please received and will be acted upon.
It's being looked at by staff.
Reviewed.
Typically, like public nuisance complaints initially get reviewed by Board of Health and Building Department staff to confirm code compliance, and then we can go from there with regards to what next steps are.
I just wanted to, I didn't think we need a resolution. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the correspondence.
Okay. Anything else?
Move to adjourn?
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Sidney, seconded by Ms. Coughlin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That is 9:47 p.m. Not bad.